Hi, how are you? It's so great to be with you in Hong Kong. I'm sorry I'm unavoidably detained, but I'm so glad that I'm with you through the power of TV, the power of media. It's one great thing, isn't it? I want to thank Juan Lee, the CEO of the Nextchange Group, a friend of mine, and I'm so sorry that I can't be there to see him. But I also want to thank Andrew Work and Celia Fung. They've been great people. All those at the Nextchange team are fantastic, as are all of you, the blockchain dreamers. What an exciting time. What an exciting place to be there. I'm not sure how many of you know that song, Dreamer, written by Roger Hodgson and Rick Davies of Supertramps, but it, like all of you, are inspiring, and that song is really worth a listen if you've never checked it out. And for the record, we are going to start with a song and end with a song here. Dreamer is the first, of course, and for good reason. I've not met anybody, nobody, who is involved in the blockchain crypto space who isn't, at least in some small part, a dreamer, which is far out. And frankly, not everyone gets what you all in the blockchain dreamer community are doing. They don't get it. I read something the other day, and here's a quote. You can talk butterfly language. You can't talk butterfly language to caterpillar people. You can't talk butterfly language to caterpillar people. And that's so true in the block and crypto space. I mean, some folks just aren't ready in their own personal evolution for whatever reason to understand what we are talking about. But you dreamers, you get it. And you aren't in some cocoon. And by the way, earlier I just said far out. I don't just mean cool and groovy and hip. It's really a way off concept, blockchain and crypto. It's something that's come to fruition, but it was this far out thing. And it's all happening now, right now, before us. It's innovative, it's transformable, transformational in numerous myriad ways. And from smart contracts to use cases in voluminous sectors, finance, healthcare, supply chain, agriculture, voting insurance and title, audits and compliance, global identity. It's a vast world ready for us dreamers, ready for you. Just think about the areas of medical records by itself, just medical records by itself, which are tremendously tedious to transfer between entities. The ability for a doctor to have access to timely patient data on a decentralized but secure platform in times of emergency will be tremendous value. It will save lives. And one doesn't have to understand how Amazon warehouses work with all of their technology and those robots to get the importance of the true essentiality of improved supply chain and inventory control. Communicating, tracking in an immutable ledger with variations, for example, of rules and regulations for various nations or states that can all be accommodated and make supply chain storage, delivery more efficient and effective. And then what about voting? Yeah, voting. In the states we've seen, like in recent months, frauds and phonies trying to swing elections. If there's ever a case for technology to protect elections, to make them tamper-proof, to protect democracies, blockchain-based ledgers are it. If blockchain's only use was protecting voting, that would be fantastic, just in and of itself. Although, like they say on the late-night infomercials, but wait, there's more, right? Title transfers, for example, which can make days with the blockchain can take only hours. I mean, it used to just take, it still can take days and days for a title transfer. It can happen in hours on blockchain. Audits for regulatory compliance in many fields can be improved. And even protecting your identity. The scamsters are always out there trying to ply their trade by breaking into computers, stealing information, and becoming, well, you. Blockchain can help stop that. The fraudsters can be stopped at the door. And I haven't even spoken about the big one, the 800-pound gorilla, of course, fintech. Plus, I'm sure there are people right there, some of you in this room, in the audience, who have other use case applications that I've not even addressed. And by the way, we want to know about them. Heck of a lot of people want to know about that. And in that regard, a little note here. While I'm not able to be with you in person, we do have two television professionals from RT America there today, Brent and Ian. If there's some lights there in the room, you may find them there. And if you can find them afterwards, look for the TV lights outside of the hall there. We'd love to hear about what you're doing. And we plan on covering the event on the broadcast, and we'll ensure to get key messages about these transformative technologies out to people all over the world, all over the world. So look for the lights and look for Brent and Ian. So where have we been and where are we going? We have the technology for Bitcoin, right, and other blockchain-based currencies. You know, it works. We know it works, and there are early adopters. Are there problems? Of course there are, and we'll talk a little bit more about that later. But blockchains work, full stop. So if we look at blockchain simply from a very basic state, it's really just a technology, right? That's all it is. And like other cool and far-out technologies, technologies can enable individuals or companies or even governments to do things better than they have been done before. It can make things more efficient, more effective, more secure. Key component there, more secure, and that's a big one. And it will, I say will, it will be able to be done ultimately more inexpensively. But at the bottom line, blockchain technology can be boiled down, and this is how I explain it to folks and some of the caterpillars out there that we spoke about earlier. It can be as simple as doing a better job of something that's probably already being done. And that may not sound so exciting to the caterpillars, and frankly, it doesn't sound that exciting on its face to me. But you dreamers, you know the difference. I mean, just think about it. Think about music, for example. The record player, I mean, a huge invention, the phonograph, a big, hairy deal, right? Music, you know, now on a disc. I mean, wow, how transformational from, you know, tapes to disc. 8 tracks were there. I mean, we've gone full speed, and the big jump there was really putting it on a record, putting it on a disc, on a phonograph, right? The tapes, maybe not so much, but nothing was like that invention of records. And there are a few variations, you know, the cassettes, etc., the 8 tracks, but ta-da-da-da-da-da, digital. Poof. Mind-blowing, right? Made something already being done not just better, but digital was a giant leap forward from tapes. And blockchain is, for sure, a giant leap, doing things better than they have been done. So what's next? Here's my take. We need to see more enterprise adoption, right? Enterprise adoption, larger entities, larger groups of people, coordinated entities. More people, more companies need to be putting this into practice, putting blockchain into practice. And a key component of doing that is getting more adoption, in my view, is agreed upon infrastructure, some basic guidelines. That is, we need to agree upon basic rules of the road, and those scary words for a lot of people, probably some of you dreamers even, regulations, and brace yourself, government. I appreciate the Hong Kong Monetary Authority being there, but I know government is scary to a lot of people. And there are very well-meaning people who are anti-government, anti-establishment, anti-anything corporate. And for those people, I think, you know, I get it. It can be a beast of a burden on people, especially average folks. I gave a luncheon speak a few years ago where I started proclaiming, doesn't government stink? It's horrible. Too much red tape, too much bureaucracy, oh my gosh, too many taxes. But then I'd ask, how's that chicken you're eating for lunch? And then I'd say I worked at the Agriculture Department, USDA, in the States, and commented that they should be very appreciative of the meats and poultry inspections that go on in the States. Then I'd go on to ask about how many people flew to the conference on planes, who came on trains, who came on cars, and suggested that actually some rules, some regulations, they're probably needed, right? And yes, it was good that regulations existed for safe water, for drug testing. And I sort of came full circle by saying that even in the financial sector, some, yes, some regulations were needed. And most people were nodding their heads in support by that time. I mean, it's always better to work within the constructs of the system to make things better, in my view. So, not only are some regulations needed, not overkill, but some rules of the road which can garner confidence and clarity from the enterprises with which we want adoption of block and of cryptos. So how do we devise those? How do regulators devise those guidelines? Well, I have a thought, and stick with me, because it's important here. So one cannot travel in Asia without encountering bamboo, right? Bamboo. It's an amazing plant. Most Americans don't realize the versatility of bamboo and its many uses. I mean, in Asia and other parts of the world, it's used in foods and beverages and medicines and products and clothing and in structures. Everything from fences and bridges to that large scaffolding that we see there around Hong Kong. It amazed me the first time I saw it 15, 20 years ago. I mean, bamboo is strong, yet it's light and it's flexible. It has elasticity, resilience, endurance, all at the same time. And my point is, and I do have one for those of you who were doubting it, it's this. The regulatory structures that are created for block and crypto should be sort of like bamboo. I know, I need to get a life. But the comparison is true. We need some, but they can't be some rules, they can't be so restrictive that they stifle innovation, right? Rules that are too heavy-handed run the risk of simply having some nations have a regulatory race to the bottom, right? They can have the thinnest of rule books and then think that they'll thrive. But what will occur and what will happen? That there will be problem after problem, and it will tarnish the whole industry. So I'm a big fan of this bamboo approach. Sometimes the bamboo approach, by the way, is called a principles-based approach. You'll hear that more than the bamboo approach, a principles-based approach. Not strict rules, just guidelines to be followed. And by the way, bamboo doesn't grow everywhere. It's got to have the right climate, of course, but it can grow, this has amazed me, up to a foot per day. We need the same thing with block and crypto. We need that sort of growth. We need to find the right climate and the regulatory system that allows block and cryptos to flourish and grow like bamboo. And principles-based regulation, in my view, that's a key component of it. So what else is needed in order to fuel inject early adoption? Other than some basic rules of the road, well, we need to be able to scale quicker, right? We need to move things, fuel inject them. When we look at which areas, which use cases are being adopted or have the ability to be adopted quicker, I'd argue it really is the financial sector. And I know I probably wouldn't get too many objections from you in that room. However, there are a lot of people, a lot of research going on in the supply chain adoption. So don't rule out supply chain as really an up-and-coming use case. But for now, the financial sector really seems to be the leader of the pack. And most of that is, of course, due to the cryptos and particularly Bitcoin. So how does the financial sector scale? Let's look at payment systems. It's a great place to start. Payments per second. Right now, Ethereum and Bitcoin can transact roughly 7 transactions per second. Only 7 per second. I mean, how many do you think Visa and MasterCard payments, how many of those made each second? Wait for it. It's something like 2,000 transactions per second. But during peak times like holidays, it could go as high as 50,000 transactions per second. If you are involved in the payment processing space, why the heck would you go to blockchain? Well, you might not. At least you might not yet. But if you're looking around the corner, if you're trying to be nimble and quick, you know that the beta testing is already being done in some processes can be even more, up to 10,000 times. Ethereum is in the middle of an upgrade right now. So my view is that the quicker, as long as it's accurate, the better. There will be competition for which miners can do this, and that's a good thing. The faster payments can be processed, the greater use will occur, and that will be more acceptance. And that more acceptance will be greater adoption. The winners, in due course, will be consumers, customers. Heck, they'll have 24/7, 365 access and transactions. They'll be quicker than ever before and less, ultimately, expensive, like pennies on the dollar instead of dollars per transactions. From a regulatory perspective, and I focus on that a lot, of course, banks and regulators will all be able to work off of the same distributed ledger. That will make things so much easier, and it'll help root out the bad actors in the space. And working together off the same ledgers will increase harmonization of rules and regulations across the world, which will in turn facilitate speed and efficiency. For example, today a cross-border transaction can take up to 5 days. I want to transfer something from the US to Hong Kong. It could take up to 5 days. Well, once the money is out of your bank account, the banks are using that float, right? They're collecting interest, even using it to trade for themselves, not for you. So the larger banks don't really like more transactions per second because it will impact their bottom line. So it will probably be the mid-tier banks, I think, that are going to be the earlier adopters of Bitcoin, blockchain, cryptos in general, by and large. But it will happen. Yes, it will happen. And I think about how easy it could be. In the States, for example, get this, 94% of all US households have a bank account. So the transition for them could be really easy if their bank just adopts blockchain. Consumers may not even know it's occurred. It could take a couple of years, maybe a few more, but it is coming. And in other emerging markets, India, et cetera, it will take a little bit more time. There is not as many bank accounts in those countries. It will take longer. I mean, outside of the actual currencies where blockchain is being used and used well, the first massive use case with early adoption is in the crypto trading space. And there are a few hundred crypto exchanges out there, and they are trading and trading every day, many, if not most, 24 hours per day. There are billions of dollars being changed ownership from one blockchain to another every single day. The exchanges have grown in a sort of trial and error fashion, right? But they're doing it, I mean, right now. And most crypto exchanges have custodians. They've got liquidity providers, market makers. They've got clearing functions. And they're all under one roof. In the traditional market trading space, a New York Stock Exchange or a Board of Trade or a Hang Seng, the counterparty is the trader's prime broker. So the risk is all with the prime broker. The prime looks at the company's aggregate portfolio and makes loans, lends cash to the company. There's nothing like that in the crypto space. Think about that. There's nothing like that in the crypto space. And it's an open road for you dreamers, for the developers to move into, and many are there working on just that. I know you are. Prime services are beginning to be offered, including lending services, custodian, mature lending tools, trading tools, analytics, innovative investment services. These are the new frontier. These are the new endeavors that are funded by venture capitalists and others, and the investors are becoming more and more discerning, more and more calculated, more and more picky in their approach. But these are the sorts of things that they are looking to, especially in the trading space. They are looking for gaps, voids to be filled for and by the dreamers. There's one more area I want to discuss, and it's super key for blockchain and blockchain dreamers. And I told you we'd end with another song, but it's also a movie, so it's a twofer. Bohemian Rhapsody, the movie, the song. The movie has continued to rock and roll as it beat box office expectations big time. It was a nominee for Best Picture. It lost to the Green Book, but at the Academy Awards. And Rami Malek, who portrayed Queen's fabulous frontman, Freddie Mercury, he actually won the award for Best Actor. And by the way, I called that in a Forbes piece I wrote back in November that he was going to do so well. The reason I mentioned Bohemian Rhapsody, as strange as you might think this is, if there are lessons for us to learn, for us dreamers to learn, from the movie. I'll give you a few quick ones. One, you dreamers need to be unconventional. While Queen was formed back in 1970 in London, it wasn't until 1974 they began to do things in a really divergent manner. And their music became internationally popular. And they did so first with that song Killer Queen, which contained these elaborate four-part harmonies. And later, Bohemian Rhapsody. I mean, heck, they combined opera and rock. That'd never been done before. And for Queen, it worked wonderfully. And in the blockchain and crypto world, given there are so many things that look the same, being divergent can be a decisive thing in terms of success. Being more disrupted can be a definitive differentiator. The same is true for cryptocurrencies and even crypto exchanges. Most of us know about the thousands of cryptocurrency startups out there, but only a few are incredibly imaginative. Most fall back on these sort of stated strategies and tired tales of how they can be the next big thing. We're the next one, watch us. As for exchanges, most explain how they're going to pool liquidity from various different exchanges all around the world, thus creating better liquidity, better price discovery, like lots of trades, right? With deeper markets, which will lead to less volatility because there'll be more traders. The reality is, there just isn't enough liquidity for all these crypto exchanges to do what they espouse. It's just not there. So, second lesson from Queen, be persistent. The film describes how the band was told repeatedly by the old school record company executives that any song, listen to this, any song more than 3 minutes in length would not receive any radio airplay. And Bohemian Rhapsody was nearly 6 minutes, 5:55. The band was committed to that song and finally figured out a potential strategy. So what they did is they took copies and they bootlegged copies to a few friendly radio disc jockeys. And once the song was actually played in London, boy, fans wanted copies of it. And even though product was actually not available on the market, Queen had created demand. They created demand for a product that did not yet exist for purchase. That soon changed, of course. The same can be true for imaginative blockchain applications and for cryptos. But it means more than just adding the word blockchain to your project. You can't just say boom, bust, blockchain. You got to be more. It requires persistence and perseverance. And three, put the effort in. Put the money into your project. It's said that Bohemian Rhapsody was the most expensive single to produce ever at the time. It turns out it was well worth it, right? The song stayed at the top of the UK's charts for 9 weeks and sold more than 1 million copies in the first year. And after Freddie passed away, it was released in 1991 and again topped the charts for 5 weeks. The tune was a treasure, too, in other countries, including the United States, where it peaked at #1 and then again went to #2 on the charts in 1992 following that movie Wayne's World. I'm not sure how many of you have seen it, but great film, Wayne's World. It's even doing well right now after the success of the movie. Likewise, for blockchain, for cryptos, for founders and investors of such endeavors, for the dreamers, many times they seem to be some pretty great and grand visions of what they will do. But they get sidetracked or held up on for a few reasons. Money tends to be a key culprit, causing folks to abandon or forestall their vivid visions. For example, many such blockchain and crypto projects start out with this goal of becoming fully compliant from a regulatory perspective. We talked about regulation earlier. And they really want the gold standard for regulation, which is the US, and having approval from regulators will, they think, differentiate the project. And it would. But what many fail to realize up front is the length of time and the cost, the money that it will take to become regulatory compliant in the States. And all of a sudden, projects are scaling back and putting US compliance sort of on the back burner and the bottoms of their to-do list. For the longer-term future of blockchain and cryptos, they are going to require such regulatory approval. Perhaps individual founders and sponsors will choose to wait for others to do the hard and expensive work in the States, but they will be done. Ultimately, it will be done. And they do so at their own peril if they wait. Because oftentimes, of course, the first movers in the space become the big boys and girls at the party. Think Bitcoin. And finally, go the extra mile. As part of the promotion for Bohemian Rhapsody, Queen produced a full-length promotional video. This was years before music television and MTV. Rolling Stone magazine noted the video's importance could not be overstated in moving toward the era of music videos, which became mostly mandatory. You had to have one in the new music business for a long time. And in that regard, blockchain and cryptos can also do better. Today, the pattern is far from perfection. Come up with a concept, produce a white paper, put up a website, try to raise money, and see if it works. That's it, right? A lot of you have done it. The nutty thing is this. That approach worked really well for a while. All of those initial coin offerings we saw back in 2017, beginning of 2018, they're a testament to that approach. But nowadays, investors, they are, as I said earlier, more picky. And they should be. The blockchain and crypto entrepreneurs which do more, value add, like Queen did their videos, value add to their efforts will be the ones which make major moves, I predict, going forward. So when all of you blockchain dreamers think of Queen and Freddie Mercury and the great music and the fun and that fierce film, we can simply sort of stomp our feet and chant, we will rock you. And for some that might be enough. But I suggest taking a few cues from Queen. I think it's a royal idea. And that's it for me. I hope you'll check out Boom Bust, our television program. It's our business and finance show that airs all the way around the world. It's probably on your hotel room television, or you can get it at youtube.com/boombustrT. Have a great time. Thank you so much for your attention. Take care. Bye-bye.